You want gore? You want some gore? The 80s gives you the gore, man!
Hey guys, Rob Georgia here with episode 12 of my 22 Shots of Appreciation. It's my chance to give back a little bit to Moodz, JP, and Jeremy, and the 22 Shots, Moodz and Horror. And so by just pointing out a few films in my collection that either directly or indirectly I can attribute back to them or the community at large, as was witnessed through my last video, my unboxing from Matt. Matt, out of the kindness of his own heart, sent Wes Craven's seminal 1972 shocker, The Last House on the Left. I have not seen this movie. It's been quite a long time. I don't know if I want to quite say back to when I was a teenager, but it's been a while. And I think because I saw the movie when I was way too young, and it left an indelible mark on me, and maybe not the greatest of mark. I mean, the end really, I don't know. I probably saw it when I was too young, but it was really interesting to revisit after all these years. And I've listened to the commentary by Wes Craven and Sean S. Cunningham, which is great on this release, on this specific release of this film. Not only you get those two on a commentary together, but you get the cast together on a commentary. And I'm not a big cast commentary person. I like to hear my director talk, and preferably by themselves. But you know, every once in a while you get a director that get somebody in there, like when John Carpenter and Kurt Russell on The Thing. That is a phenomenal commentary. I love that commentary, as well as Escape from New York. But this was good. I mean, the commentary, just them going back and reliving. This is a rough movie. You know, it's funny because when I started revisiting it, I mean, right off the get-go. I mean, whether it's the Crazies, you know, Romero's original, or his Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. You know, there are certain movies that come out of the 70s that are 70s movies. And then there are movies come out of the 70s that, I don't know, they just don't really have that 70s vibe. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. It's weird. Like Jaws. Jaws never really feels like okay, we're trapped in the 70s. That thing could have happened anytime. But when you watch something like Last House on the Left, or even The Crazies, I mean, it just, oozes of 70s. And that's not a bad thing. It's fun. It's grainy. I mean, this movie is, it's rough, but it's, I don't know. It was fun to revisit. Well, fun might be kind of a weird word to use. If you listen to, of course, if you go back and listen to episode 57 of the 22 Shots of Moodz and Horror, that is when JP and Moodz do the feature review. It's the director spotlight on Wes Craven, and of course, we all mourn his passing, and really sucks that he's not with us anymore. But I do appreciate that JP and Moodz did the director spotlight on him, and their feature review was Last House and The Hills Have Eyes. And that's another one, actually, that I need to go back and revisit. I don't have it in my collection, and I really need to, because I think the last time I actually picked up that film in a video store or a store that I was in, I think I did notice that Wes had a commentary on that as well, and I would really be curious to listen to it. But anyways, just a few thoughts. If you want a really good review, an analysis, breakdown of the film, then you need to go to the episode 57, Director Spotlight, Wes Craven, on the 22 Shots, Moodz and Horror. But you know, there is a few things. You know, one of the things that I agree with that they do get into is the end. There is just aspects of the end that now watching it so many years later, it's just unbelievable. I mean, there's no way that happens like that. And, I was just thinking, in fact, what I was thinking was, if this really happened, and you're the parents that are on the receiving end of this, there is no way that you sit there and scheme up a plan. I mean, once you get back out of the wood line, I mean, I don't know what I would do. Maybe burn the house down to the ground, make sure none of them get out of the house. I mean, it's just, your brain wouldn't just, I don't think you would just sit there and actually methodically think your way through, laying out traps and luring people out and just, I mean, I think you would be so enraged that you would just flip into a whole new gear. And for better or worse, probably not so much for the better, you would just do what would come out of you. And that is kind of goofy. The music too, Mr. Hess actually does a lot of the music that's played, and the music does come across as a little goofy, but I almost wonder if that wasn't intentional. I haven't heard anything contrary or that would make me believe that from Wes or Sean or any of them. But, I was just thinking, going back, just thinking about what Moodz had said, JP had said, if they would have played that film, I mean, straight as a razor's edge. I mean, no, at least to us, and maybe it didn't to them back then when they filmed it, but without that goofy music, to kind of offset things just a little bit, if they would have really played it I don't think people could have handled it, actually. I mean, people had a hard time handling it, even the way it was presented to them. There is just absolutely no way. I don't think people back in 1972 would have known what to do with it. They wouldn't have been able to handle it. It would have been too much, I think. But the music, I think, helps in a weird way, offsets some of the seriousness in a way, and it does make it a little bit more consumable. But it is not for the faint of heart. I mean, if you don't like your films gritty and that just really attempt to punch you in the stomach really hard, then this definitely is not the film for you. But Wes Craven has passed, and so there's been a lot of renewed attention to him in his career, and from where he started and where he finished. And it is an interesting, Moodz and JP touches on this as well, it is an interesting arc to see him throughout his career and what he started. And he himself, I mean, this is a dark place that he did not want to ever really go back to. And you can't mean the series, you can't even compare Scream with this movie. And I don't know if you can make a movie like this today. I dropped a voicemail on one of the episodes. I can't remember what episode it was now, but I had just seen The Green Inferno, and I had some interesting thoughts. I thought about just how that movie just did not come across as feeling mean at all, and to my surprise, Moodz had agreed with me, and that's an interesting conversation. I wish I could remember the episode number of that off the top of my mind. I can't. But I also brought up in that voicemail Rob Zombie, and it's interesting because I revisited House of a Thousand Corpses, and I really do think that film is a nod to a few films. I mean, whether it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, or the Old Dark House, the 32. I'm sure there's one or two other nods. There's a really huge nod, I think, in House of a Thousand Corpses to Last House on the Left. If you go back and rewatch that and then you watch this, there is there just seems to be a really strong, I don't know, just a lot of, it's almost like Rob looked at certain things in that film and said, yeah, I'm going to key on that, but in a whole different way and light, of course. It's not like he just took it and copied it, but there is a strong, the characters, how the villains treat each other in Last House, you know, and how they act in House of a Thousand Corpses. There's similarities, I think, between Sadie and Beatty, and it's just interesting. I would appreciate any feedback on that on the comments below. Of course, I am VHS 82, and I guess I do want to kind of wrap this up. It is an interesting film to go back and revisit. It is tough. It is tough to get through, especially as a parent, because you don't know what, in a million years, what you would do. God forbid you ever put into this kind of situation. And I think what they ultimately do in the end is a little bit unbelievable. I just think you would act on complete impulse. I mean, you would, whether it's, you know, I think like JP and Moodz said, calling in the authority or just taking matters into your own hand, but doing it just furiously doing it in just in a fit of rage. There's just no way I think that end of this film is plausible. But it is interesting, and I think Mr. Craven had a reason why he did that. Ultimately, to the very end of where he wanted you with them as parents, and you know, the whole backdrop of Vietnam. And what's surprising on the commentary is Kent State's not mentioned. I don't know if I've ever heard George Romero talk about Kent State. You know, that happened in 1970. Or Craven, Carpenter. I don't know if I've heard any of these guys mention Kent State and the impact that moment in time had on them as direct. I know it contributed to their whole, just their anger at the time. You know, whether it was the late 60s coming into the 70s. There's a reason why Tobe Hooper creates a Texas Chainsaw Massacre when he does. There's a reason why Romero creates A Night of the Living Dead in 1968 when he does. There's a reason for The Last House on the Left. And that's, I think, why these films are still talked about today, because so much anger, so much just passion is poured into these things. And as rough as a film as this is, technically speaking as well, I mean, not just because it's rough, but it's definitely, I mean, this is his first venture, but I mean, there are moments, and JP mentions a really good moment, but I'll let you go listen to that, that really puts the spotlight on Craven as a director who is coming very soon. Of course, when I was 14, I got to see A Nightmare on Elm Street in the theaters, and that was amazing. That was really my first introduction to Wes Craven, I think. And I probably saw this in there around some point via VHS. But this was an interesting film to revisit. So anyways, I think I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up there. If you haven't, episode 57 of the 22 Shots of Nudes and Horror is the director's spotlight on Wes Craven. It's a great, they look at Last House, and of course, Hills Have Eyes. And so those episodes are always fun to go back and listen to. And also they give a nice tribute to Wes Craven as well in that episode. And anyways, that'll do it for episode 12. Wes Craven's 72 seminal shocker, The Last House on the Left. There you go. So have a good rest of your week. And as always, go Bills.